She thought her journey was over, but the frontier had other plans. What happens when the heart pulls you in two directions, and the choice you make will change everything? Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you like the story and where you're watching from and why you're following this. 6 months had passed since Sarah and Joseph's conversation on the bench at Fort Gibson. Autumn had given way to winter, bringing biting winds that swept across the Oklahoma plains. Their relationship had deepened despite the disapproving glances and whispered comments from both the fort's residents and the local tribes. Sarah stood at her classroom window, watching snowflakes drift lazily to the ground. Her students, a mix of Cherokee, Creek, and Choctaw children, were huddled over their writing assignments, their faces serious with concentration. "Miss Calloway?" A small voice interrupted her thoughts. "I finished my story." Sarah turned to find Little Bird, a shy Cherokee girl, holding up her slate. "Let's see what you've written." As Sarah reviewed the child's work, her mind drifted to Joseph. He had been gone for nearly 3 weeks on a mission to escort an army delegation to Comanche, a remote Comanche settlement. The separation had been difficult, each day stretching endlessly without their evening conversations. After dismissing her class, Sarah was gathering her materials when Mrs. Blackwood appeared in the doorway, her expression unusually grave. "Miss Calloway, Captain Bennett requests your presence in his office immediately." Sarah's heart quickened. "Did he say why?" "No," the older woman replied, her disapproval evident. "But the scout party returned an hour ago. There was trouble." Sarah hurried across the fort's grounds, her boots crunching through fresh snow. The administration building was unusually quiet as she approached the captain's office and knocked. With trembling fingers, "Enter," came Bennett's clipped response. Inside, the captain sat behind his desk, his face haggard with fatigue. 2 other officers stood nearby, their expressions somber. "Miss Calloway," Bennett began formally, "I regret to inform you that there was an incident during the delegation's return journey. A band of renegade Comanche attacked the party near the Red River." Sarah's world narrowed to a pinpoint. "Joseph?" She managed to whisper. "Gray Wolf was wounded while defending the delegation," Bennett continued, his voice softening slightly. "He was shot twice. The delegation managed to escape, but he remained behind to cover their retreat." "You left him?" Sarah's voice rose sharply. "You abandoned him to die?" Captain Bennett stiffened. "Miss Calloway, the delegation included a congressman and 2 senior officers. Gray Wolf made a choice to protect them at his own expense. It was heroic, but what?" Sarah demanded, forgetting all propriety. "You don't even know if he's alive or dead." "The renegades were part of the Ghost Horse Band," one of the other officers interjected. "They've been raiding settlements for months. Gray Wolf knew the risk when he volunteered for the mission." Sarah fought to maintain her composure. "What's being done to find him?" "Miss Calloway," Bennett said carefully, "even if he survived his wounds, Gray Wolf would be considered a traitor by those Comanche. They don't look kindly on their own working with whites." The implication was clear: no rescue party would be sent. Joseph was considered expendable, a casualty in the complex dance between the U.S. government and the native tribes. "I see," Sarah said coldly. "Thank you for informing me, Captain." She turned to leave, but Bennett's voice stopped her. "Sarah," he said, dropping formality, "I understand you formed an attachment to Gray Wolf, but surely you must see this as providence. A relationship between you two could only have ended in heartbreak." Sarah looked back at him, her grief hardening into resolve. "The only providence I see, Captain, is that I now know exactly where I stand and where Joseph stood in the eyes of this fort." That night, Sarah paced her small quarters, alternating between tears and fierce determination. The wooden star lay in her palm, its edges worn smooth from months of handling. "You said some guides remain constant," she whispered to it. But how do I find my way to you? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Opening the door, she found Mrs. Two Hawks, one of the Cherokee women who helped in the schoolhouse. May I come in? The older woman asked quietly. Once inside, Mrs. Two Hawks spoke in a low voice. I heard about Gray Wolf. My husband was with the delegation. He told me what really happened. What do you mean? Sarah asked. The captain didn't tell you everything, Mrs. Two Hawks said. The attack wasn't random. The Ghost Horse Band came specifically for Gray Wolf. They called him traitor before they fired. Sarah sank onto her bed. Why would they target him specifically? Because of you, the woman replied bluntly. Word spreads, even among enemies. A Comanche warrior walking out with a white woman. It challenges the old ways. Some see it as betrayal. The weight of this knowledge crushed down on Sarah. Joseph had been targeted because of their relationship, because he had dared to cross boundaries that both their peoples maintained. Mrs. Two Hawks, Sarah said slowly. Do you think he could still be alive? The Cherokee woman considered this. My husband said Gray Wolf was shot, but still fighting when they retreated. If the Ghost Horse wanted information about the fort, they might have taken him alive. Then I have to find him, Sarah said, rising to her feet. Mrs. Two Hawks studied her with dark, knowing eyes. That would be foolish. A white woman alone in Comanche territory would not survive long. I won't be alone, Sarah replied, a plan forming in her mind. And I won't be recognized as a white woman. The older woman's eyes widened with understanding. You're suggesting ... double quotes. Will you help me? Sarah asked directly. Your people trade with the Western tribes. You know the territories. I have some money saved. I can pay. Mrs. Two Hawks was silent for a long moment. What you're proposing is dangerous beyond measure. You could be killed. Or worse. Joseph risked his life protecting people who considered him expendable, Sarah said fiercely. I won't abandon him when he might need me most. After another long silence, Mrs. Two Hawks nodded slowly. My cousin trades with the southern bands. He leaves tomorrow at dawn. If you're truly determined, meet me behind the stables before first light. She moved toward the door, then paused. Bring only what you can carry on your back. And Miss Calloway? Cut your hair tonight. Yellow hair is too easily spotted. After Mrs. Two Hawks departed, Sarah moved with quiet efficiency. She packed a small bundle of essentials, wrote a brief note to Mr. Simmons resigning her position, and then stood before her small mirror with a pair of scissors. Her blonde hair had always been her pride, falling in waves past her shoulders. As she raised the scissors, Sarah remembered Joseph's fingers gently touching a loose strand once, his eyes warm with admiration. I'll find you, she promised her reflection as the first lock fell to the floor. Whatever it takes. By morning, with her hair cropped short and darkened with coffee grounds, wearing clothes borrowed from Mrs. Two Hawks, Sarah Calloway bore little resemblance to the prim teacher of Fort Gibson. As she slipped away from the fort that had been her home and sanctuary, she carried with her only the essentials for survival and a wooden star to guide her way. The journey west with Mrs. Two Hawks' cousin, a taciturn Cherokee trader named Daniel, proved even more grueling than Sarah had anticipated. They traveled by horseback through terrain that grew increasingly harsh and unfamiliar, avoiding Maine. Trails and army patrols alike. Daniel had been skeptical of Sarah's disguise and mission, but had accepted Mrs. Two Hawks' request and Sarah's money with a resigned nod. The Ghost Horse Band ranges near the Wichita Mountains, he'd told her. If your Comanche lives, that's where they'd take him. After 10 days of hard travel, they made camp in a sheltered canyon. Sarah's body ached from hours in the saddle, and her fair skin was windburned, despite the dark berry juice she applied each morning to maintain her disguise. We reach trading grounds tomorrow, Daniel said as they huddled near a small fire. The Cherokee have peace with most Comanche bands, but not Ghost Horse. I'll introduce you as my mute half-breed assistant. Keep your head down and your mouth shut. How will I find information about Joseph I can't speak? Sarah asked. Daniel gave her a hard look. Better silent than dead, woman. Your accent would give you away instantly. I'll make inquiries about captives. That's the best I can offer. That night, as icy wind howled through the canyon, Sarah clutched the wooden star and fought waves of doubt. The vastness of the territory, the fierceness of the ghost horse band, her own limitations, all seemed insurmountable in the darkness. I don't even know if you're alive, she whispered. Am I chasing a ghost, Joseph? The trading grounds proved to be a collection of temporary shelters where members of different tribes gathered to exchange goods. Daniel skillfully navigated the complex social hierarchies, trading pelts and tools while Sarah kept her gaze lowered, observing everything from beneath the brim of her hat. On their second day there, a group of Comanche riders arrived. Sarah's heart pounded as she studied them, covertly, searching for any sign of ghost horse affiliation. The riders traded briefly with Daniel, their expressions guarded. That evening, Daniel returned to their small camp with a grim expression. I have news, but you won't like it. Sarah steeled herself. Tell me. Ghost Horse has a captive matching Gray Wolf's description. They're holding him at their winter camp near Medicine Bluff. Daniel hesitated. They plan to execute him at the next full moon as a traitor to the Comanche ways. The full moon was 8 days away. Sarah's mind raced. How far is their camp? 2 days' ride west. But you can't be thinking. I have to try, Sarah interrupted. Will you take me closer? Daniel shook his head firmly. My obligation ends here. Getting you killed won't help your Comanche. Then I'll go alone, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite her fear. After a long silence, Daniel sighed heavily. There's a half-blood Comanche woman named Talks, with birds who trades medicines with Ghost Horse. She might help you for the right price. He pointed toward a small shelter at the edge of the trading grounds. But she's unpredictable. As likely to turn you in as help you. That night, Sarah approached the healer's shelter with her remaining money hidden in her boot. The woman who emerged was older than Sarah had expected, her weathered face bearing the lines of a difficult life, her dark eyes sharp with intelligence. I wondered when you would come, Talks with Birds said in perfect English, startling Sarah. The trader's silent assistant who watches too carefully and touches a wooden star when she thinks no one sees. Sarah's blood ran cold. You know who I am? I know you are not Cherokee, not mute, and not wise, the woman replied, stepping back, to allow Sarah inside her shelter. But perhaps you are brave. That counts for something among my mother's people. Inside, the small space was filled with the scent of herbs and smoke. Talks with Birds studied Sarah openly. You seek the Comanche trader, she stated flatly. He's not a traitor, Sarah replied, her voice low but fierce. His name is Gray Wolf, and he's a man caught between two worlds, just as you are. Something flickered in the older woman's eyes, recognition, perhaps, or remembered pain. Why would a white woman risk everything for a Comanche? Sarah touched the wooden star in her pocket. Because he once asked me if I still believed in love when all seemed lost. Now I must ask myself the same question. Talks with Birds was silent for a long moment, then nodded once. Ghost Horse keeps the trader in a ravine near their winter camp. He is guarded, but not heavily. They believe his wounds will kill him. Before the execution ceremony, hope and fear surged through Sarah in equal measure. Will you help me reach him? I travel to their camp tomorrow with medicines, the woman replied. You may accompany me as my assistant. After that, your fate is your own. Thank you, Sarah whispered. Talks with Birds raised her hand. Do not thank me yet. If you are discovered, we will both die. And even if you reach him ... double quotes, she hesitated. I saw him 3 days ago. The wounds are deep, and fever has taken hold. He may not survive the journey back, even if you somehow free him. I have to try, Sarah insisted. The older woman studied her with newfound respect. Then rest tonight. Tomorrow we ride into the shadow of death, and you will need all your strength. The journey to the ghost horse camp was tense with unspoken fear. Talks with Birds maintained a steady stream of instruction, teaching Sarah basic Comanche phrases and how to carry herself properly. Keep your eyes down but your back straight, she advised. Comanche women are humble but never servile. As they approached the camp, Sarah caught her first glimpse of Medicine Bluff rising majestically against the winter sky. Under different circumstances, she might have found the landscape beautiful. Now it represented only the final barrier between her and Joseph. The ghost horse camp consisted of several dozen tipis arranged in a semicircle. Warriors on horseback patrolled the perimeter, their faces painted for war despite the season. Talks with Birds was greeted with cautious respect, her medicines valued even by those who distrusted her mixed blood. The prisoner is kept there, the older woman murmured, nodding toward a narrow ravine beyond the main camp. I will be called to tend the chief's wife soon. When I go, make yourself useful gathering wood. Work your way toward the ravine. 2 warriors guard the entrance. Sarah nodded, her mouth too dry for speech. As they unloaded their supplies, she forced herself to move deliberately, fighting the urge to run immediately to the ravine. When Talks with Birds was summoned to the chief's tipi, Sarah began gathering firewood as instructed, gradually working her way toward the ravine's entrance. The 2 guards watched her approach with indifference, just another woman performing her duties. From her peripheral vision, Sarah could see a crude shelter at the bottom of the ravine. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain the guards must hear it. As she bent to collect a fallen branch, one of the warriors suddenly called out to her in Comanche. Sarah froze, then remembered Talks with Birds' instruction. She kept her eyes lowered but her back straight as she responded with one of the phrases she had been taught, a simple acknowledgement of his authority. The warrior laughed and said something to his companion, who also chuckled. Sarah realized, with a mixture of relief and indignation, that they were making crude jokes at her expense. She lowered her head further and continued gathering wood, moving steadily closer to the ravine's edge. When the sun began to set, Talks with Birds found Sarah and whispered urgently, "Tonight, when the moon rises, I will create a distraction at the main camp. You will have perhaps 15 minutes before they discover the prisoner missing." As darkness fell and the camp settled into evening routines, Sarah huddled beneath a borrowed blanket, clutching the wooden star and praying for courage. The moon rose slowly over Medicine Bluff, casting long shadows across the winter landscape, when shouts suddenly erupted from the largest tipi, followed by the glow of flames. Sarah knew her moment had come. The commotion at the chief's tipi drew the guards away from the ravine. Sarah slipped down the rocky path, her heart thundering in her chest. The crude shelter at the bottom was little more than branches lashed together against the ravine wall, offering minimal protection from the bitter winter wind. "Joseph?" she whispered, ducking inside. In the dim moonlight, filtering through the branches, she could make out a figure lying motionless on a bed of pine boughs. For one terrible moment, Sarah feared she had come too late. Then the figure stirred slightly. "Who?" "Comes?" The voice was weak but unmistakably Joseph's. Sarah rushed to his side, her eyes adjusting to the darkness. What she saw made her blood run cold. Joseph's normally strong frame was gaunt, his face flushed with fever. Bandages wrapped his shoulder and chest, dark with dried blood. "It's Sarah," she said, touching his face gently. "I've come to take you home." Joseph's eyes widened in disbelief. "Sarah? Impossible. The fever brings visions now." "No vision," she insisted, taking his hand and placing it against her cheek. "I'm here. We have to go quickly. Talks with Birds created a distraction, but it won't last long." Recognition dawned in his eyes, followed immediately by alarm. "You shouldn't be here. Ghost Horse will kill you if they find you." "Then let's not be found," Sarah replied, her voice stronger than she felt. "Can you stand?" With painful effort and Sarah's support, Joseph managed to get to his feet. He swayed dangerously, leaning heavily against her smaller frame. "The fever," he mumbled. "It comes and goes. The wounds ... Save your strength," Sarah urged, guiding him toward the ravine. "Path. We need to reach the horses' talks with birds prepared." Their progress was agonizingly slow. Joseph fought for each step, his breathing labored, his skin burning against hers. By the time they reached the top of the ravine, shouts from the main camp indicated the distraction was ending. "This way," Sarah whispered, supporting as much of Joseph's weight as she could manage. They made their way through the darkness toward a small copse of trees where talks with birds had promised to leave horses. Each step seemed to take an eternity, the sounds of the camp growing more organized behind them. "Sarah," Joseph gasped as they reached the trees, "if they follow, you must leave me. Promise. I crossed half of Indian territory to find you." She replied fiercely, "I'm not leaving without you." 2 horses were tethered among the trees, along with a small bundle of supplies. Sarah helped Joseph mount with tremendous effort, his face contorted with pain as the movement tore at his wounds. "The southern trail," he managed to say once they were both mounted. "Less traveled." They rode into the night, Joseph slumped forward over his horse's neck, Sarah constantly glancing behind them for pursuers. The cold was bitter, the wind cutting through their inadequate clothing like knives. By dawn, Joseph was barely conscious, held on his horse only by the ropes Sarah had tied around his waist. When they reached a sheltered canyon with a small stream, Sarah knew they could go no further without rest. She helped Joseph down and laid him on a bed of pine branches beneath an overhanging rock. His skin burned with fever, his breathing shallow and rapid. "Joseph," she said, trying to keep the fear from her voice, "I need to check your wounds." When she unwrapped the crude bandages, Sarah had to bite her lip to keep from crying out. The bullet wounds were infected, the flesh around them angry and swollen. She used water from the stream to clean them as best she could, then applied the medicines talks with birds had included in their supplies. "Why did you come?" Joseph asked weakly as she worked. "You were safe at the fort." "Safe but incomplete," Sarah replied, wrapping fresh bandages around his chest. "Captain Bennett told me you were probably dead, that no one would be sent to look for you." Joseph nodded slightly, as if this confirmed something he had always known. "I am caught between worlds, Sarah. Comanche call me traitor. Whites see me as expendable." "Not to me," Sarah said firmly. "Never to me." They rested through the day, Sarah keeping watch for pursuers while trying to coax Joseph to drink broth made from the dried meat in their supplies. His fever continued to rise, and by nightfall he was delirious, murmuring in Comanche and English, sometimes calling for his long-dead wife. Each time he spoke that woman's name, Sarah felt a sharp pang. She reminded herself that she had no claim on Joseph's heart, no right to feel jealousy toward a ghost. Yet as she bathed his fevered brow and whispered reassurances, she couldn't help wondering if she had been foolish to believe they could build a life together across such vast divides. On the 3rd night after their escape, Joseph's fever broke. Sarah, who had barely slept, was dozing against the canyon wall when his clear voice woke her. "You cut your hair." She touched her shorn locks self-consciously. It was too recognizable. Joseph studied her in the moonlight. "You left everything behind to find me." "Not everything," Sarah corrected, taking the wooden star from her pocket. "I kept this. You said it would guide me, even on the darkest nights." Joseph's eyes filled with emotion. "Sarah Calloway, you are either the bravest or the most foolish woman I have ever known." "Perhaps both," she admitted with a small smile. As Joseph's strength slowly returned, they began making their way eastward, avoiding settlements and army patrols alike. Their conversations were sporadic, both conserving energy for the difficult journey. Yet something had shifted between them, an unspoken tension that hadn't existed before. One evening, as they made camp in a protected hollow, Joseph finally addressed it. "You heard me speaking to my wife's spirit during the fever." Sarah busied herself with the fire. "You were delirious. It meant nothing." "It meant something to you," he countered gently. "I saw it in your eyes when I woke." Sarah sat back on her heels, staring into the flames. "It made me question whether what lies between us is real, or if I'm simply convenient, a way for you to bridge your two worlds." Joseph was silent for a long moment. "Among my people, we believe each person walks their own path. Sometimes paths cross for a reason. Sometimes they run parallel for a time. But no path can be forced to follow another's direction." "What does that mean for us?" Sarah asked, meeting his gaze directly. "It means I don't know if our paths are meant to join permanently," Joseph replied honestly. "The Ghost Horse Band targeted me because of you, yes. But also because I have lived too long between worlds, belonging fully to neither." His words cut deep, all the more painful for their truth. "So you regret what has grown between us?" "No," Joseph said firmly. "I regret that the world makes it so difficult. That both our peoples would rather see us apart than together." "And what do you want?" Sarah pressed, her voice barely above a whisper. Joseph looked up at the star-filled sky. "When I was held captive, certain I would die, it was your face I saw, your voice I longed to hear once more. If that is not love, then I do not know what is." He turned to meet her eyes. "But love is not always enough, Sarah. The path ahead would be hard beyond measure." "You're saying goodbye," Sarah realized, her heart constricting. "I'm saying we must be certain," Joseph corrected. "Both of us. Before we challenge the world to accept what it has never accepted before." That night, Sarah lay awake long after. Joseph had fallen asleep, his words echoing in her mind. She had risked everything to find him, acting on faith and love without questioning the future. Now faced with the reality of what a life together would mean, doubts crept in like the night chill. Would they ever truly belong anywhere? Would children of their union be accepted by either world? Could love, however strong, withstand the constant pressure of two societies united in their disapproval? As dawn broke over the eastern horizon, Sarah still had no answers. But watching Joseph sleep, his face peaceful for the first time since she had found him, she knew one thing with certainty: whatever path lay ahead, she was not ready to walk it alone. Spring had come to Indian Territory by the time Sarah and Joseph approached Fort Gibson. The journey had taken weeks longer than expected, as Joseph's wounds healed slowly and they traveled cautiously, avoiding detection. They made camp in a flowering meadow within sight of the fort's distant walls. Tomorrow they would have to face whatever consequences awaited them: Sarah's unauthorized departure, Joseph's complicated status with the army, the uncertain future that lay before them. "Are you certain you want to return?" Joseph asked as they sat beside their small fire. "You could continue east. Start fresh somewhere no one knows your story." "Running away won't solve anything," Sarah replied, stirring the rabbit stew she'd prepared. "Besides, Mrs. Two Hawks risked much to help me. I need to ensure she hasn't suffered for it." Joseph nodded, understanding her sense of responsibility. During their journey, they had reached a fragile equilibrium, their feelings for each other undeniable yet tempered by the realities they faced. "And us?" he asked quietly. "Have you decided what path you wish to follow?" Sarah met his gaze across the fire. "I know that I love you, Joseph. That hasn't changed. But you were right, love alone isn't enough. We need more than feelings to build a life together." "What more do we need?" he prompted. "Purpose," Sarah said thoughtfully. A place where we both belong, not just as refugees from our separate worlds, but as people with something to contribute. Joseph considered this. During my captivity, I had many hours to think. The Ghost Horse Band hates the white man's world. Yet they are being destroyed by it: whiskey, disease, broken treaties. The same is happening to all the tribes, even those who seek peace. What are you saying? Sarah asked. Perhaps our purpose lies in the space between worlds, Joseph suggested. Not fully in either, but building bridges where we can. Teaching, translating, helping others navigate the changes that are coming, whether anyone wishes them or not. Sarah felt something stir within her, a vision of possibility she hadn't considered before. You mean working with the tribes and the government? Being interpreters of more than just language? Joseph nodded. It would not be easy. Both sides would mistrust us, but perhaps that very mistrust makes us valuable. We understand both perspectives. As night deepened around them, they spoke for hours, their conversation moving from abstract ideals to practical possibilities. For the first time, Sarah could see a future that wasn't just about defying convention for love's sake, but about creating something meaningful from their unique position between cultures. When they finally settled to sleep, Sarah lay watching the stars, feeling more at peace than she had in months. Whatever challenges awaited them at Fort Gibson tomorrow, they would face them with clear purpose and united hearts. Dawn brought an unexpected development. As they prepared to break camp, the sound of approaching horses put them instantly on alert. Joseph reached for his knife, then relaxed slightly as he recognized the riders. Cherokee, he said. 2 men and a woman. As the riders drew closer, Sarah recognized Mrs. Two Hawks among them. The older woman's face was grave as she dismounted. We've been searching for you, she said without preamble. You cannot return to the fort. Why? Sarah asked, alarm rising. What's happened? Captain Bennett has charged you with theft of Army property and abandonment of your post, Mrs. Two Hawks explained. And Gray Wolf. She turned to Joseph. The Ghost Horse Band sent messengers. They claim you stole sacred medicine objects during your escape. They're demanding the Army turn you over for tribal justice. Joseph's expression hardened. I took nothing from them except my life. It doesn't matter, Mrs. Two Hawks replied. The Army is looking for a reason to wash their hands of you. This gives them the perfect excuse. Sarah felt the ground shifting beneath her once again. So we're fugitives now. From both sides, the Cherokee woman nodded grimly. For now, but my husband and I have discussed your situation. We have a proposition. She explained that her husband's brother was a principal chief among the Cherokee Nation. He had been seeking educated people to help establish schools that would preserve Cherokee language and culture while teaching the skills needed to navigate the white man's world. The Cherokee Nation has its own laws, its own territory, Mrs. Two Hawks continued. You would be beyond the Army's jurisdiction there. And the Ghost Horse Band has no influence among our people. Sarah and Joseph exchanged glances, both recognizing the echo of their conversation from the previous night. Why would your brother-in-law accept us? Joseph asked. A white woman and a Comanche man. Mrs. Two Hawks smiled slightly. Because you both understand what it means to live between worlds. And because I told him how far you were willing to go for each other. Such loyalty is valued among my people. The decision was made quickly. They would travel with Mrs. Two Hawks and her companions to the Cherokee Nation in the eastern part of the territory. There, they would begin building the bridge they had envisioned, not between their individual worlds, but between all the worlds that existed in this changing land. As they rode eastward, away from Fort Gibson and into an uncertain future, Sarah found herself thinking of that night by the Missouri River, when a stranger had asked if she still believed in love. Joseph, she said, guiding her horse alongside his. Do you remember what you asked me the night we met? He nodded, a smile touching his lips. I asked if you still believed in love, despite one man's betrayal. I never answered you properly. Sarah said, but I can now. She reached across the space between their horses to take his hand. Yes, I believe in love. Not the kind I thought I wanted then, safe, predictable, approved by society. But this kind, the kind that challenges. You is to be more than we thought possible, that gives us courage to build something new when the old paths are closed to us. Joseph's fingers tightened around hers. The Comanche have a saying, love is not looking at each other, but looking together in the same direction. And is that what we're doing now? Sarah asked. Looking in the same direction? Yes, Joseph replied, his dark eyes reflecting the vast sky above them. Toward a horizon neither of us could see alone. 3 years later, the small school near the Cherokee capital of Tahlequah had grown from a single room to a thriving center of learning. Students from Cherokee, Creek, Comanche, and even white settler families studied together, learning each other's languages and customs alongside traditional academic subjects. Sarah stood in the doorway of their modest home, watching Joseph lead a group of boys in constructing a traditional Comanche hunting bow. His wounds had long since healed, leaving scars that he wore without shame, marks of a journey that had brought him to this unexpected place. Their daughter, Elizabeth 2 Stars, played nearby, her dark hair and blue eyes a perfect blend of her parents' features. At 2 years old, she already spoke words in English, Cherokee, and Comanche, moving effortlessly between the worlds of her heritage. There had been challenges, of course. Some Cherokee families had initially been hesitant to accept them. Army officials occasionally made inquiries about the deserter and the thief rumored to be living among the Cherokee. And somewhere to the west, the Ghost Horse Band continued their resistance against the encroaching white world. But here, in this place between worlds, Sarah and Joseph had found something neither had believed possible that night by the river. Not just love, but purpose. A way to honor both their pasts while creating a future that might, in some small way, help heal the divisions between peoples. As Joseph finished his lesson and approached the house, Sarah met him halfway, their hands finding each other's with the easy familiarity of shared struggle and joy. Do you ever regret it? She asked, a question she still posed occasionally. Giving up your freedom to roam for this settled life? Joseph looked at their daughter, then back at Sarah, his expression serene. I have never been more free than I am now, walking this path we've made together. As the setting sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Sarah thought of the wooden star that now hung above their daughter's bed, no longer a guide through darkness, but a reminder that even the most unexpected journeys could lead to home. One step after another, she murmured, leaning against Joseph's shoulder. Into whatever comes next, he finished, his arms circling her waist as they stood together, watching the day end and a new night begin, just as they would face whatever tomorrow brought. Side by side, their separate paths now permanently intertwined.